O God of creation, direct our noble cause.
Day after President Mahmoud Buhari presented the 2022 appropriation bill of 16.39 trillion naira before the National Assembly, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, is giving a breakdown of the highlights of the budget to the public. She begins with an overview of the performance of the 2021 budget.
Of the expenditure, 2.87 trillion was utilized for debt service, while 2.57 trillion was utilized for personnel costs, including pensions and gratuities. As at the end of August, 1.75 trillion naira had been expended for capital projects.
On the 2022 appropriation bill, the minister says in aggregate that 4.9% of projected revenues is to come from oil-related sources, while 65.1% is to be earned from non-oil sources.
The projected aggregate revenue available to fund the 2022 budget is 10.13 trillion, and this is inclusive of government-owned enterprises revenues. This revenue is 24.8% higher than the 2021 projection of 8.12 trillion.
She also says the rationale for the revision of the 2022-2024 medium-term fiscal framework includes 100 billion naira additional provision for INEC toward advanced preparations for 2023 general elections, 400 billion naira for national poverty reduction with growth strategy, 178.1 billion naira provision for population and housing census scheduled for 2022, and 37 billion naira additional provision for MDA's electricity bills debts, among other things. The overall budget deficit is 6.26 trillion naira for 2022, which represents 3.39% of GDP, and it is to be financed mainly by borrowings from domestic sources, foreign sources, multilateral, bilateral loan drawdowns, and privatization proceeds, which the minister says are still within sustainable limits.
Nigeria's budget deficit is at minus 4.7% in 2021, and the debt to GDP ratios of 21.6% are the lowest amongst Nigeria's comparator countries.
In terms of the sectoral allocation, defense and security sector takes the lion's share of 2.4 trillion naira, followed by infrastructure with over 1.4 trillion naira and education with over 1.2 trillion naira.
We also provided 54.87 billion for Gavi immunization funds, including counterpart funding for donor-supported programs, including global funding. We also provided 54.05 billion transfer to the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. So the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund has been on statutory transfer since 2020, which means it's on autopilot. They get the 1% of the CRF.
The presentation generates reactions majorly on poor revenue generation in the country, over reliance on oil revenue sources and borrowings to fund budget. While the public presentation of the appropriation bill by the federal government is commendable, Nigerians are however waiting to see how funds budgeted will be utilized. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.